Hello everybody, this is lecture 2 of unit 1 and I'm going to talk about the end of Zhou dynasty and then spring and autumn period and the warring states period and reunification by Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi and then Han dynasty. So that will be the ancient history of China. So we studied in relation to the bronze vessels, Zhou dynasty, especially if you go to the second phase called the Eastern Zhou. They moved their capital toward the east. That's the period of confusion and civil war, and they are called the spring and autumn period and warring states period. During warring states period, 7 major states contended for supreme control of the country. There was still Emperor of Eastern Zhou, but the emperor could not provide any support or stability. He was a nominal figure, and basically these major states were fighting each other. But eventually, unification was achieved by Qin Shi Huangdi. This means the first emperor of Qin, the man called himself Qin Shi Huangdi, made unification in 210 BCE, meaning still before Common Eras. Qin Shi Huangdi's reign short-lived. China was reunited under the rule of Han dynasty, and Han again had Western Han and Eastern Han. Again, this is related to the location of their capitals. It lasted about 400 years. So Han dynasty is really important. How do we know so much about Han dynasty or previous period? Because there was a major historical record called Shiji. It's called historical records in itself. It is written by Sima Qian, and he was a talented historian, very loyal to Han dynasty as well. This became a standard of later official histories. But there is one thing that we should bear in mind. In Shiji, there are a lot of descriptions of China dealing with their western or northern neighbors. And in Chinese standards, or from Chinese perspective, these tribes living slightly outside of the empire borders were considered barbarian. Well, in our own standard, we know that we have to treat neighboring countries with mutual respect and friendship, for example, right? But Chinese people didn't consider those neighboring tribes with respect and friendship. They considered them as potential enemies, and they always called them barbarians. So Wu Di was a very important emperor of China, and he established Confucianism. It's one of the philosophical thoughts. Confucianism as the basis of correct official and individual conduct, and then established the educational curriculum based on Confucian scholars. In their mind, neighboring tribes, especially nomadic tribes living in the mountains, they are not exposed to Confucianism or any other philosophical ideas. They act strangely, or they act incorrectly or improperly, so that we should not accept them into our system. So China will maintain this type of hostile relationship with neighboring countries. At times, they will accept them. Or the neighboring tribes or countries will send a lot of presents in order to gain some favor from China. But they always had some tensions between China and the neighboring states. So overall, nomadic tribes, they always want to come to the central part of China because they have a high civilization. As I mentioned, they have a high technological innovation. And also they provided silk or other woven textiles. So those were also obvious of neighboring countries. So Zhou, Qin, Han, very important, especially Han dynasty. This Confucianism-based international view will guide Chinese politicians in the next several dynasties as well. Spring and autumn period, it is the age of philosophical development. Because politics is unstable, a lot of scholars paid attention to their self-cultivation. They read books. They cannot serve the government because it is confusing and dangerous. So that they had sort of a leisurely time in a way, away from their official duties. So they read and debated. And then the warring states are based on those philosophical ideas and new thinkers. They were competing. Warring states, you have a persistence of the old Shang customs, such as burying people alive, right, for the tombs. But technologically, it's very developed. So they start to use iron tools. Some historians explain that because of the introduction of iron tools, the wars became even more encouraged, right? If you have a good weapons, you want to try. So these capital names like Yan, Zhao, Wei, Lu, Song, Zhou. So these are competing kingdoms. There is still Zhou dynasty, but it was nominal. It's not very strong. So that smaller governors of each state, each region, they were competing. Chu is a large country ruling the Yangtze areas. Actually, Chu was one of the wealthiest countries during the warring states. Or Han, you can imagine it's very proper, right? Succeeding that Han dynasty that it will come a bit later. And then Wei was important too, but surprisingly, the little kingdom, which defeated all of these countries and became the sole ruler, was ruler from Qin. So they will be Qin dynasty. Their capital was close to Xi'an, so eventually Xi'an will be the capital of Han dynasty, Qin and Han dynasty as well.